Anton Thorne was the kind of man people feared without knowing why. The world called him a billionaire, a recluse, the silent owner of half the coastline and most of the city's old money secrets. But behind the polished headlines and charity galas, Anton was something far older than wealth. He was a vampire king, a widower who had buried his queen centuries ago and never healed from the emptiness she left behind. He ruled an empire hidden beneath human streets, guarded by laws written in blood and moonlight. And now, for the first time in decades, his control was slipping, because of three small voices that echoed through his mansion like thunderstorms. The triplets weren't just children. They were power, raw, unruly, magical power, trapped in 6-year-old bodies. Liam, Samuel, and Arya carried the royal bloodline so strongly that emotions could bend the air around them. When they laughed, candles sparked without matches. When they cried, mirrors cracked. And when they became bored, anything could happen. Anton's staff didn't quit politely. They fled. Some never even took their coats. 5 nannies were gone in a month. 3 housekeepers had resigned in tears. A butler had run out mid-sentence and never returned. The mansion, perched on a cliff like a black crown against the Atlantic, had become a battlefield disguised as luxury. Anton told himself he could solve any problem with power, money, or fear. But children didn't respond to fear the way adults did. His triplets were immune to intimidation because they were made from it. They weren't scared of their father's red eyes or the ancient darkness in his voice, because that darkness lived in them too. And deep down, Anton knew the truth he hated most. What the triplets needed wasn't another servant. They needed a mother. Not a caretaker. Not a hired smile. A real heart that could steady theirs. That was why Isabella Sterling existed. Isabella was perfect on paper. Young, glamorous, connected, born from old human bloodlines that opened doors in politics and society. She was the kind of woman who could attend a gala, charm donors, and stand beside Anton without raising a single question about why he never ate, why he never aged, or why his mansion felt colder than winter even in summer. She had pursued him with a polished obsession, speaking about family and love, as if those words were accessories to match her red silk dresses. Anton had accepted her engagement not because he loved her, but because he was desperate to believe someone could help him give his children stability. But Anton never trusted easily. He tested everyone, especially those who smiled too smoothly. So he created the simplest test of all. He hid his crown and his fangs, kept his vampire nature buried beneath flawless manners and watched. He watched how Isabella behaved when no cameras were on her. He watched how she spoke to staff when she thought no one mattered. And most importantly, he watched what she did when his children, his wild, dangerous, powerful triplets, stood between her and the life she wanted. The engagement party was coming, and Anton demanded perfection. The Thorne estate had to look untouched, spotless, sacred, because human society would soon flood through it like a careless tide. That meant one thing: he needed extra help. Fast. At the employment agency downtown, the job listing was circled in thick red ink, the kind reserved for desperate placements. It wasn't just high pay, it was hazard pay disguised as a cleaning contract. Elisa Vance stared at the paper like it might bite her. Her fingers were rough from cheap soap and constant work. Her coat was thin, her shoes scuffed, and her stomach tight with the kind of stress that never truly leaves. She wasn't here because she wanted adventure or mystery. She was here because her younger brother's medical bills were due on Friday, and their refrigerator at home was a lonely echo of emptiness. Across from her, Mrs. Higgins, the caseworker with kind eyes and tired shoulders, adjusted her glasses and looked down at Elisa's file with a deep frown. "Are you sure about this one, Elisa?" she asked quietly. "The Thorne estate has a history. 5 nannies, 3 housekeepers, a butler, all in 1 month. They say the children are difficult. They say the master is private." Elisa tightened her grip on the strap of her canvas bag. The bag was worn so much it looked like it carried the weight of her whole life. "I don't have a choice," Elisa said, voice steady even when her heart wasn't. "I'll scrub floors. I'll clean fireplaces. I'll polish silver until I can see my soul in it. I'll do anything, if the pay is real." Mrs. Higgins sighed and slid the address across the desk like it was a warning. "The pay is triple standard," she admitted. "But Elisa, if you take this, you follow their rules. And if something feels wrong, you leave." Elisa nodded. She didn't tell Mrs. Higgins the truth, that leaving wasn't an option for people like her. People like her didn't get rescued. People like her rescued themselves even when it hurt. That afternoon, her beat-up sedan crawled up the gravel driveway of the Thorne estate. The mansion rose ahead like a Gothic memory, black stone and sharp spires cutting into the sky. The Atlantic raged below, the wind smelling of salt and storms. As Elisa drove closer, something strange happened, though she couldn't explain it. The daylight dimmed unnaturally fast, as if the world itself held its breath around that house. The front doors were massive oak, carved with patterns that looked almost like vines, except vines didn't usually form symbols that made Elisa's skin prickle. She carried her cleaning supplies in 2 trips, her arms straining, and knocked once. No answer. She knocked again, harder, because she didn't have time for silent drama. And then the door creaked open by itself. Elisa froze. The agency hadn't mentioned automatic doors. The hallway beyond was dark, the air colder than outside, smelling like expensive cologne, old books, and something metallic, like copper pennies held too long in a sweaty hand. They were used to nannies screaming. They were used to maids crying. They were used to adults begging them to stop. They weren't used to someone correcting their aim. The girl slid down the bookshelf with impossible speed and landed softly on the floor without a sound. That wasn't normal. But Elisa's life had been full of not normal, just in different ways: evictions, hospital rooms, cruel bosses. She didn't flinch. "Who are you?" the girl demanded. "Elisa Vance," Elisa replied, picking up her duster again. "Temporary sanitation specialist. Fancy words for, I clean things people ignore." One of the boys hopped down next, landing too lightly, like gravity had forgotten him. "You're not scared," he said, suspicious. Elisa shrugged. "I've been scared my whole life. It got boring." The other boy leaned forward with a smirk. "Daddy said you're not supposed to talk to us." Elisa sighed dramatically, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. "Your dad also said stay out of the basement. I'm guessing he says lots of things." The triplets stared at her, startled again. Elisa pointed toward a dusty corner. "If you want to make trouble, make useful trouble. Hand me that cloth." They hesitated. Then, slowly, Liam picked up a rag and tossed it to her. Samuel grabbed the ladder and held it steady. Arya watched Elisa like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Elisa climbed the ladder, dusting the high shelves while the children helped. Not because they were suddenly obedient, but because she treated them like real people instead of monsters wearing children's faces. Arya tilted her head. "You're poor," she said bluntly, like a child who didn't understand manners. Elisa laughed softly. "That's rude. I prefer financially challenged. I'm working hard to fix it." Samuel puffed up proudly. "My daddy has money." "I noticed," Elisa said. "He has a room full of gold bars in the basement," Samuel blurted. Liam elbowed him. "That's a secret." Elisa smiled, assuming it was childish imagination. "Well, lucky him. I don't need gold bars. I just need people to pay what they owe and stop acting like kindness is weakness." Behind the walls, unseen by Elisa, a security camera blinked. And in his office across the mansion, Anton Thorne watched the feed. He had expected screaming. He had expected panic. He had expected her to run. Instead, he watched a cleaning lady lecture vampire triplets about books, respect, and responsibility, while holding her ground like she belonged there. Anton's expression didn't change, but something inside him shifted. A quiet, dangerous curiosity. "Interesting," he murmured. At that exact moment, the office door swung open. Isabella Sterling entered like a headline. Blonde hair perfect, lipstick flawless, perfume expensive enough to choke an entire room. She wore red silk that clung to her like a promise, and she smiled as if she owned the future. "What's interesting, darling?" she purred, leaning in to kiss Anton's cheek. Her skin was warm. His was cold. She didn't react. She never reacted to the wrong things. That was part of what unsettled Anton. "The children," Anton said smoothly, eyes still on the screen. "They're occupied." Isabella's gaze flicked toward the monitor. Her smile tightened when she saw Elisa on the ladder and the triplets gathered around her. "Oh," Isabella said, her voice sweet but her eyes sharp. "The staff is still here." Anton leaned back in his chair, watching Isabella the way he always did, like a judge waiting for the truth to reveal itself. "The children are in the library," he said. "Why don't you go say hello? I have a call." Isabella's smile faltered for the smallest fraction of a second, so small most people would miss it. But Anton never missed anything. "Of course," Isabella said, smoothing her dress. "I can't wait." She left with a soft click of heels, the sound slicing through the mansion like a blade. Anton didn't move. He simply switched the camera feed to follow her. Because this was the test. And somewhere deep inside him, beneath centuries of grief, beneath royal duty, beneath cold discipline, Anton found himself hoping for one thing he had never allowed himself to hope for. That the invisible cleaning lady might be the only one brave enough to walk into a lion's den, and not bow. As Isabella pushed open the library doors, the air in the room shifted. Not because of vampire magic. Because cruelty had entered. Aunt Elisa, still dusting high shelves, didn't know yet that her real job hadn't started when she picked up a mop. Her real job started now, when a powerful woman looked at her like she was nothing. And 3 dangerous little children held their breath, waiting to see if this cleaning lady would finally break. Ending line easy to copy. And as Isabella's smile sharpened and the triplets' eyes gleamed with mischief, Elisa stepped off the ladder, unaware that the next 5 minutes would change her life forever. Isabella Sterling stepped fully into the library as if she were entering a stage built solely for her. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, announcing her presence with practiced authority. The warmth she carried was artificial, like a painted fire that gave no heat. Her eyes swept the room, not to admire the books, not to notice the children, but to calculate. Value. Control. Hierarchy. Her gaze landed on Elisa. The cleaning lady stood near the ladder, dust cloth in one hand, the other resting casually on a shelf. Her clothes were simple. Her hair was tied back in a practical knot. There was nothing glamorous about her, nothing that belonged in a mansion like this. And yet the triplet stood close to her, too close. Isabella's lips curved into a smile that never reached her eyes. "Oh," she said lightly, her voice carrying just enough sweetness to disguise the poison beneath. "I didn't realize the help was still working." Elisa climbed down the ladder calmly, placing the cloth back into her bucket. She'd heard that tone before, used by managers who thought kindness was weakness, by customers who believed money made them superior. "Yes, ma'am," Elisa replied politely. "I'll be out of your way soon." Isabella didn't acknowledge her answer. Instead, she crouched slightly, reaching into her designer bag and pulling out 3 expensive, identical teddy bears. "Perfect. Generic. Loveless. Look what I brought you, my darlings," Isabella cooed, her voice pitching high and fake. "Aren't they adorable?" The triplets stared at the bears as if Isabella had placed 3 dead fish on the floor. "We don't like bears," Arya said flatly. Isabella's smile twitched. "Nonsense," she snapped, then quickly corrected herself, laughing too loudly. "All children like bears. Come here and give Mommy Isabella a hug." She reached for Arya's arm. Arya stepped back instinctively. "I don't want to." Isabella's patience snapped like cheap thread. "Don't be a brat," she hissed under her breath, and grabbed Arya's arm hard. Too hard. "Ow!" Arya cried out. The sound sliced through the library like broken glass. "Please don't," Elisa said quietly. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just firm. The room went silent. Isabella straightened slowly, her face flushing with rage and humiliation. No one, touched her. Especially not staff. "Excuse me?" Isabella whispered, her eyes cold. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Elisa met her gaze evenly. "You're someone hurting a child." The triplets pressed closer to Elisa, instinctively seeking shelter. Their eyes flicked between the 2 women, watching, learning. Isabella laughed sharply. "You're a cleaner," she said. "You wipe floors. You don't tell me how to raise children." "I'm not telling you how to raise them," Elisa replied softly. "I'm asking you not to hurt them." Isabella's lips curled. "Get out." Elisa blinked. "Ma'am?" "Out," Isabella repeated louder now. "I don't tolerate interference from hired help." Before Elisa could respond, a shadow filled the doorway. Anton Thorne stood there, tall and silent, his presence changing the air itself. The temperature dropped, not with cold but with power barely restrained. "What is going on?" Anton asked. Isabella turned instantly, her expression transforming into wounded innocence. "Anton, darling," she said, rushing to his side. "Your cleaner assaulted me. She grabbed me in front of the children. I was only trying to discipline them." The word assaulted echoed in the room. Elisa felt her chest tighten, but she didn't lower her eyes. She stood still, hands at her sides, ready to be fired. Ready to lose the paycheck she desperately needed. She had chosen the children over herself, and she knew the cost of choices like that. Anton didn't respond immediately. His gaze shifted to Arya, who was rubbing her arm. Then to Elisa. Then back to Isabella. "I saw everything," Anton said calmly. Isabella froze. "The cameras," Anton continued, his voice dangerously even. "They cover every room except bedrooms." Isabella's face drained of color. "You grabbed my daughter," Anton said. Hard. She was being difficult, Isabella snapped, the mask cracking. Children need discipline, Anton. Especially, unusual ones. The word unusual hung in the air. Anton's eyes darkened, not red but something deeper. Older. They are not problems to be controlled, he said quietly. They are my children. Isabella laughed nervously. You're overreacting. She pointed at Elisa, is manipulating them. Look at how they cling to her. Anton looked again at Elisa. At the way she stood slightly in front of the children without realizing it. Like a shield. She didn't manipulate them, Anton said. She protected them. Isabella stared at him in disbelief. You're taking her side? I'm taking the truth's side, Anton replied. Isabella's jaw tightened. If you expect me to marry into this house, she said coldly, I will not be undermined by staff. Anton took a step forward. And if you expect to stay in this house, he said softly, you will never touch my children like that again. The silence that followed was suffocating. Isabella's eyes flicked to the triplets, then to Elisa, burning with hatred. This isn't over, she said quietly. She turned and left the library, heels striking the floor with sharp fury. The moment she disappeared, the tension released like a snapped wire. Arya looked up at Elisa. You didn't yell, she said, confused. Elisa knelt down to her level. Yelling doesn't fix pain, she said gently. Listening does. Anton watched them, something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. You disobeyed my rules, he said. Elisa looked up, fully expecting dismissal. Yes, sir. You spoke to my children. Yes, sir. You touched my fiancée. Elisa swallowed. To stop her from hurting your daughter. Anton studied her face, searching for fear, greed, calculation. He found none. Why? He asked simply. Elisa hesitated, then answered honestly. Because someone should. The triplets leaned closer to her as if that settled everything. Anton straightened. You're not dismissed, he said. Elisa blinked. Not? No, Anton replied. You're reassigned. The word echoed ominously. To what? Elisa asked. Anton's gaze flicked briefly toward the corridor leading underground, the one he had forbidden her from entering. Tonight, he said, you'll clean the east wing. Elisa's stomach tightened. You said. I know what I said, Anton interrupted. His voice softened slightly. But I need to see something. See what? Elisa asked. Anton looked at his children, then back at her. How brave you really are. The triplets exchanged excited glances. And far beneath the mansion, something ancient stirred, something that recognized kindness like a forgotten language. The corridor leading to the east wing felt different the moment Elisa stepped into it. The air grew heavier, older, as if the mansion itself was watching her pass. The lights dimmed automatically, responding not to switches but to presence. The walls here were carved from darker stone, etched with symbols Elisa didn't recognize, yet something about them tugged at her chest, like a memory she had misplaced long ago. Anton walked ahead of her, his steps silent, his posture rigid. He hadn't said a word since reassigning her, and the silence pressed against Elisa's nerves more than any shouting could have. The triplets followed closely, unusually quiet, their usual mischief replaced with a strange reverence. You've never brought anyone here, Liam whispered. Anton didn't deny it. They stopped before a heavy iron door at the end of the hall. It wasn't locked with a key, no handle, no keypad. Anton placed his palm against the stone beside it. The wall pulsed faintly as if it had a heartbeat, and the door slid open with a low, resonant hum. Elisa's breath caught. Beyond the door was a staircase spiraling downward into darkness. The air smelled of earth, old metal, and something sharper, ancient power that made her skin prickle. This is the lower level, Anton said. You will clean only the antechamber. You do not touch anything else. Elisa nodded, though her heart raced. Yes, sir. As they descended, the symbols along the walls began to glow faintly, silver, then red, responding to Anton's presence. Elisa noticed something strange. As she stepped, the glow didn't fade behind her. It lingered. The antechamber was vast, circular, and carved directly into the cliff. Stone pillars rose like frozen sentinels. At the center stood an altar of black marble, cracked with age but still humming with restrained energy. Gold veins ran through the floor, not decorative, Elisa realized, but structural, like conduits. She set down her supplies carefully, suddenly aware that this wasn't just a basement. It was a sanctuary. I'll be right here, Anton said. If you feel unwell, you leave immediately. I'll be fine, Elisa replied, though she wasn't sure why she believed it. Anton hesitated, then turned and led the children back up the stairs, sealing the door behind them. The moment Elisa was alone, the room changed. The glow intensified, not violently but warmly. The symbols along the walls brightened as she passed them, responding to her touch without her touching them at all. A soft hum filled the air, like a distant choir. Elisa frowned. "Okay," she muttered. "That's new." She began cleaning, wiping centuries of dust from surfaces that hadn't been touched in years. As she approached the altar, her head tilted instinctively. Words formed in her mind. Not thoughts. Not memories. Language. She froze. Her lips parted, and before she could stop herself, she whispered, "Valen Thirikale." The sound echoed through the chamber like a bell struck underwater. The altar flared with light. Elisa staggered back, heart pounding. "What did I just say?" The air responded, settling, calming, like a beast recognizing a familiar voice. Above her, far beyond stone and secrecy, Anton stiffened. "You felt it?" The ancient wards that only responded to royal blood or sacred command, had activated. But not for him. He turned sharply to the sealed door, eyes darkening. "That's impossible." Back in the chamber, Elisa pressed a hand to her chest, breathing hard. The words still lingered on her tongue, as natural as breath. She approached the altar again, drawn by a pull she couldn't explain. "I don't know you," she whispered, unsure why tears burned her eyes. "But you know me." The altar pulsed softly in response. Images flashed in her mind, moonlit halls, silver crowns, a woman standing beside a throne not as a servant, but as an equal. A woman whose voice could calm monsters and command kings. Elisa dropped to her knees. "No," she whispered. "That's not me. I clean houses. I barely survive." The chamber disagreed. The door above burst open. Anton descended the stairs in a blur, control cracking. He stopped short when he saw her, kneeling before the altar, bathed in silver light, symbols blazing around her like they had been waiting centuries for her return. "What did you say?" Anton demanded, his voice tight. Elisa looked up, frightened. I don't know. It just came out." "Say it again," he said. "I can't," she replied honestly. "I don't know how I knew it." Anton stared at her like the world had shifted beneath his feet. "That was High Valerian," he said slowly. "The language of the first queens. It's been dead for over 1,000 years. Elisa shook her head. "I've never studied anything like that." "I know," Anton said hoarsely. "That's why this shouldn't be possible." The triplets peeked down the stairs, eyes wide with awe. "She made the room listen," Arya whispered. Anton approached Elisa carefully, as if she might vanish if he moved too fast. "Who are you?" he asked quietly, not as a king interrogating a servant, but as a man facing the impossible. Elisa met his gaze, tears streaking her cheeks. "I don't know," she said. "But I swear I didn't mean to break anything." For the first time in centuries, Anton Thorne felt fear, not of enemies, not of rebellion, but of hope. Because if the altar had awakened for her, then Elisa Vance wasn't just a cleaning lady. She was something the vampire world had lost. Something it desperately needed. And something Isabella could never be. Morning arrived at the Thorne estate, dressed in elegance and deception. Crystal chandeliers were polished. Long banquet tables gleamed beneath white linen. Staff moved carefully, whispering as if the walls themselves were listening. The engagement luncheon was scheduled for noon, and high society would soon flood the mansion. Politicians, donors, old families with sharp smiles and sharper judgments. Elisa stood in the service corridor, tying her apron with shaking fingers. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw silver light, heard ancient words echoing through stone. She could still feel the altar's warmth humming beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. Anton's reaction replayed in her mind over and over. Not fear, not anger, but something far more dangerous. Recognition. She had expected to be fired after what happened in the basement. Expected security, accusations, maybe even police involvement. Instead, Anton had said nothing. He had escorted her back upstairs himself, his hand briefly hovering near her back, not touching, but close enough that she felt protected in a way she never had before. And that scared her more than the magic. "Elisa." She turned to see another maid handing her a folded uniform, black, simple, pristine. "You're assigned to the main hall today," the woman whispered. "Miss Sterling specifically requested you." Elisa's stomach dropped. She knew that tone. She'd heard it from bosses who smiled while sharpening knives. "Yes," Elisa said quietly, taking the uniform. In the grand hall, Isabella Sterling stood at the center of everything, radiant, composed, lethal. She wore ivory silk today, the color of innocence carefully chosen. When she saw Elisa enter, her smile widened. "Ah," Isabella said sweetly. "There you are." Elisa stopped a respectful distance away. "You asked for me, ma'am?" Isabella's eyes flicked over her, measuring, dismissive. "I did. I thought it would be appropriate for you to serve the guests directly. After all, you seem to have a talent for being noticed." A few nearby women laughed softly. Elisa lowered her eyes. Of course. The luncheon began like a performance. Guests admired the architecture, the art, the mystery of Anton Thorne's reclusive lifestyle. Isabella glided from group to group, playing the perfect future wife, laughing, touching Anton's arm, presenting herself as the heart of the estate. Anton endured it. But his eyes followed Elisa. She moved quietly through the room, serving drinks, clearing plates, absorbing small humiliations with practiced grace. "Careful," one guest muttered as Elisa passed. "This rug costs more than you." Another smiled thinly. "You must be grateful to work in a place like this." Elisa said nothing. She never did. Then Isabella struck. "Ladies," Isabella announced lightly, drawing attention. "May I share a charming story?" The room stilled. "This morning," Isabella continued, "our cleaning lady here decided to wander into restricted areas of the estate. She even claimed to understand ancient symbols. Can you imagine?" Laughter rippled. Elisa felt heat rush to her face. Anton stiffened. "Isabella." "Oh, darling, it's harmless," Isabella interrupted, smiling. "She's been pretending all sorts of things lately. Delusions happen when people want more than their place allows." The words hit harder than any slap. Elisa kept her head down, heart pounding. "You should be careful," Isabella said, stepping closer. "People like you often confuse kindness with opportunity." Silence followed. Then a small voice broke it. "She's not pretending." Arya stood at the top of the stairs, the triplets beside her. The guests gasped softly. Anton turned fully now. "She helped us," Liam said. "She didn't scream," Samuel added. "She didn't run." Arya looked directly at Isabella. "You hurt me." The room froze. Isabella laughed sharply. "Children exaggerate." Anton stepped forward. "No," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried power that bent the air. "They don't." He turned to the guests. "I've hidden many things," Anton said calmly. "But I will not hide the truth." Isabella's smile faltered. "Anton, don't do this." He ignored her. "This woman," Anton said, placing himself beside Elisa, "protected my children when she had nothing to gain and everything to lose." He looked at Elisa, not as an employer, not as a king. As a man who trusted her. "You humiliated her," Anton continued, eyes returning to Isabella. "You lied. And you failed the only test that mattered." Isabella's face flushed. "I am your fiancé." Anton's eyes flashed red. Gasps filled the hall. "No," he said coldly. "You were a candidate." Isabella stumbled back. "You can't embarrass me like this." "You embarrassed yourself," Anton replied. "Guards." Two figures appeared instantly. "Escort Miss Sterling out," Anton ordered. "She is no longer welcome here." The room erupted in whispers. Isabella stared at Elisa, hatred burning. "This isn't over." Anton didn't look at her again. As Isabella was removed, the guests sat stunned. Anton turned to Elisa. "Leave us," he said to the room. Slowly everyone did. When they were alone, Anton faced her fully. "You endured cruelty with grace," he said. "You chose kindness when it cost you." Elisa's voice trembled. "I didn't do it for rewards." "I know," Anton said softly. "That's why it matters." He hesitated, then bowed his head slightly. "Not as a king. As a man. For centuries I searched for someone worthy of standing beside me," Anton said. "I never imagined she'd be holding a cleaning cloth." Tears filled Elisa's eyes. "I don't belong in your world." Anton stepped closer. "You already changed it." Above them the triplets smiled, safe, calm, whole. And for the first time since his queen died, Anton felt something bloom that he had buried long ago. Hope. The mansion felt different after Isabella left. It wasn't quieter, if anything it breathed more freely. The air no longer pressed down with pretense or quiet cruelty. Sunlight slipped through tall windows without resistance, touching stone that had not felt warmth in years. Even the triplets noticed it. "She's really gone," Samuel whispered, peeking through the curtains. Anton stood beside the window, hands clasped behind his back. Yes, he said. And she will not return. Elisa remained near the doorway, unsure where she belonged now that the invisible line between servant and something more had been crossed. She felt exposed, like a secret dragged into daylight. I should go, Elisa said softly. I don't want to cause trouble. Anton turned slowly. You didn't cause it, he replied. You revealed it. That night, the triplets couldn't sleep. Their power, once chaotic and dangerous, surged through the mansion like a restless tide. Candles flickered wildly. Shadows stretched unnaturally long. The ancient wards beneath the house trembled, responding to emotions they could no longer contain. Anton felt it immediately. They're destabilizing, he said, pacing the corridor. Without balance, their magic will tear through the seals. Elisa watched the children clutch each other in fear, no longer mischievous, no longer wild. They're scared, she whispered. Anton stopped. His voice was heavy with centuries of regret. I don't know how to help them. Their mother used to, she could calm them. Center them. Elisa hesitated. Then she knelt before the triplets. May I try? She asked gently. Anton's instincts screamed danger, but something deeper, older, whispered trust. Yes, he said quietly. Elisa closed her eyes. The words returned, not forced, not frightening, but natural. Warm. Like a lullaby remembered from before birth. She spoke softly in the ancient tongue, her voice steady and kind. The room answered. The walls glowed silver. The air settled. The triplets' breathing slowed as if the world itself had wrapped them in an embrace. Arya leaned into Elisa's arms. It feels safe, she murmured. Anton stared. The wards responded fully now, awakening not in defense but in recognition. The truth unfolded like dawn. Elisa, Anton said hoarsely. You're not just speaking the language. She looked up at him. What am I doing? You're commanding it, he said. Only queens ever could. The basement altar flared one final time, its light rising through the mansion like a heartbeat returning after centuries of silence. Elisa staggered. I never wanted power. Anton stepped forward and steadied her. That's why it chose you. The ancient magic revealed its final secret, not destiny written in blood but in choice. Elisa wasn't born royal. She wasn't cursed or stolen. She was invited. The magic recognized kindness as authority, strength as mercy, leadership as protection. Anton lowered himself before her. Not in worship. In acknowledgement. I hid as a widower, he said. I tested everyone because I feared choosing wrong again. But you never tried to be chosen. Elisa's tears fell freely now. I'm just someone who didn't walk away. Anton met her gaze, vulnerability bare. That's what makes you extraordinary. The triplets joined them, placing their hands over Elisa's heart. You're ours, Liam said simply. And we're yours, Arya added. In that moment, the empire beneath the earth accepted her. Not because she was powerful, but because she was worthy. The coronation was quiet, no crowns, no crowds. Just moonlight, ancient stone, and a promise spoken without fear. Elisa didn't become queen by standing above others. She became queen by kneeling beside them. And Anton, once a king hiding behind shadows, finally stepped into the light, not as a ruler alone, but as a protector with a partner. Moral. Kindness is not weakness. True power listens before it commands. And the greatest queens are often the ones the world never notices, until everything changes.